Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have Goblins versus Elves. This battle was fought at 2250 points. The scenario was Plunder, and this is the first Clash of Kings 2019 report on the channel. Now, unfortunately, because it's the first report of 2019 on the channel, I don't have the Easy Army update, meaning that I don't have the army list written here. So instead, I'm just going to have to run down what we have unit by unit, which should be over quickly enough. But before we do that, let's take a look at this table. Starting on the left, we have a crater, and we have 1, 2, 3 of these craters on the table. We decided to play them as forest just to make it a little easier, or on the terrain. We didn't have great selections this time around, so we just decided to use those as forest. Then we have 1 and 2 hills. These are height 2 hills. This one down on my side of the deployment, unfortunately, my opponent set it up and had set the hill slightly in the deployment estimate. That was his intention, and you know, it was, so I guess it's here. Then on top of it, we have 1 and 2 big old fences. These are height 1 obstacles. And then we have these large obstructions, so these half buildings. I think there's also one somewhere over here to the right. But yeah, those are height 4 obstacles, or yeah, height 4. While the craters that we have here, here, and here, these are height 6 forests. So that's the idea for the table. Now for the scenario, this is one of the new scenarios that replaces, I think, Secure the Field in 2019. The way that you set it up is before you and your opponent set up your armies, right, or choose table sides, you set up 5 loot counters. So these are loot counters. You set 1 in the middle of the field, and then you set 1, 2, 3, and 4, 12 inches away from each other. So they're just in this big line here, right down the center of the table. Now after that, you roll off 4 sides, and the winner of that roll off chooses one of the loot tokens, and that loot token will be worth 2 VP at the end of the game. Your opponent then chooses a different loot counter, you can't choose the same one, to also be worth 2 VP. They're both worth 2 VP to both players. All the other tokens are worth 1, meaning that in this game, if you have both primary tokens, you can't lose, assuming your opponent can't get them from you. Since I won the roll-off and got to choose tableside, I chose this little token to be my primary, and my opponent chose this one, meaning that we have these 3 on my right. Those are all worth 1, while the 2 on my left are worth 2 each. So yeah, I deployed much harder on the left here, as you can see, and I'll go over those units in a second, as did my opponent. So our right sides are essentially vacant. But yeah, moving forward to the army list themselves. So first off, let's go through my opponent's list. This unit right here, you've seen before, that is his horde of Draken Riders. Then we have 2 troops of Silver Breeze. We have a Dragon Kindred Lord in the back here. Now in 2019, the Dragon Kindred Lord only has a breath attack of 10, but I think my opponent just didn't run magic items in this, or I know he didn't have any on the Dragon Lord. I'm not sure where they were elsewhere in the list, except for where I'll note. This Stegodon is a noble on War Chariot. Then we have 1 regiment of Palace Guard. Now what's funny here is that you can see my opponent is using some Wood Elf War Dancer models, right? But then right to the right, he has these Swordmasters and Blackguard, right? These are from my collection. So unfortunately, it turns out that I didn't give him all the Lothern Sea Guard that I have in my possession, so when he runs these, he just runs this as his Sea Guard. But anyway, so on the left we have a regiment of Palace Guard, and on the right we have a horde of Sea Guard. I'm not sure if they have any items, I don't think they do. Behind them we see the first ASB. This is the one with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness, so that's still in 2019. And off here to the right we see another regiment of Palace Guard, which are Mengel's Manflayers, I think those models are. We have a horde of archers with the ubiquitous Heart-Seeking Chant. and behind them another ASB. This guy has the Diadem of Dragonkind. And finally, off on the right here, we have a second Stegodon model. That is his second Noble on War Chariot. Over here, last unit for the Elf Army is a last troop of Silver Breeze Cav. I'm not exactly sure, besides the 2 magic items that I noted, if my opponent has any, but if he does, they didn't really come up, or at least I didn't see them. And moving forward, we see the Goblin Army. So off here on the left, this is Cuzlo and, Cuzlo and Madfall. This is a new unit for goblins and for ogres in 2019. He is a hero, obviously. He is large cav, so height 3, or height 2, I actually think. But anyway, he's melee 3+, no range attack, defense 4+, 5 attacks, 12-14 nerve, and then he has Crush 2, and Crush 2 vicious. He inspires just himself, so just for Cuzlo and Madfall. I don't have this right in front of me, so I'm trying to remember. Oh, Pathfinder and regen 4+. So he's a pretty good combat monster. Oh, and nimble. So pretty good combat monster. And then he has his own little special rule, which says that all units, friend or foe, within 6 inches of him, suffer -1 to their nerve value. So -1/-1. So he is a mini little super dread, I guess. So because he messes with his friends as well. I kind of wish they'd give him inspire goblins, just because I think it would be funny if he was around goblins and inspiring them, but giving them -1, minus to their nerve. Just a funny bit, but anyway, I think he's a solid unit. Costs 145 points. I brought the Spell Siphon upgrade, which costs 15 points for Cuzlo. And the way that works, it's a legendary spell, which means that the dice can never be increased by any way. It has to be on a hero, and so on and so forth. The Spell Siphon is a range 12 spell that can steal any spell that a unit it targets has, whether it's from the dragon or the unit or the magic item, doesn't matter. It steals it, immediately casts it, and then your opponent cannot cast that spell during their next turn. It doesn't work on Surge, unfortunately, but yeah, it's an interesting spell, and this is definitely a list of let's try all the 2019 stuff. So that's Cuzlo. Over here to Cuzlo's right, we see 1 and 2 Goblin Blasters. So yeah, they took them off of being a living legend, and they dropped them by 10 points, so now they are 65 points each. And yeah, I really want to give them a try, as I don't like them in ogres, but in goblins they might actually be pretty good. Moving forward with the next picture, the first little weapon team here, that is Gobbler's, I can't remember the dude's name, but that's the special character, Rock Lobber. It's 100 points still. It lost Elite, and it lost its +1 to the number of the blast. It used to be blast D6 +3, now it's D6 +2, but it gained big shield, so that's what this is right here. And yeah, I'm not sure it's exactly worth it, but I wanted to try something very specific in this list, which I'll go over when I get to it. Behind, we see my first Wiz. This guy is so he comes with his Lightning Bolt. I gave him Banechant 2, and then he also has another legendary spell, which is Teleport. So Teleport is a 3-die spell that you cast it on another friendly individual model that cannot fly and is not mounted. It has to be individual infantry, I want to say. You cast it on them, and then they immediately make a 20-inch fly move, which cannot be a charge. So basically, it's a little teleport, obviously by the name Teleport. So yeah, I'll go over that combo in a second. Then right to his right, we see the first actual Rock Lobber. Then behind here, we have my first Flaggit. This guy is the Loot of Insatiable Darkness, and obviously is on a Fleabag. Then we have my first horde of Goblin Chariots. They have no upgrades. Then I have my first horde of Rabble. They have no upgrades. Then I have my second horde of Rabble. These guys actually have the Banner of the Griffin. And then finally another horde of Rabble with nothing. The giant model you see here, this is a big boy. So if you thought the Mantic Giant was big, Oof, he's got nothing on this guy. This is a colossal giant, so it's on that 75 by 75 base. It's essentially a giant with, so it's speed 7, it's melee 4+, defense 5+, has d6 plus 10 attacks, is a dash 20 nerve, and then has Strider, crushing 4, brutal, and it has vicious against infantry only. So it's a pretty brutal monster for 235 points. I like it in Goblins. I might go over my thoughts of it on it in Ogres, where unfortunately I think it competes with a newly buffed entry in the Mammoth. So I'm looking for ways to use this model, and the Goblins seemed like a good fit. Off here we see my second horde of chariots. They have no upgrades as well. I have a Mincer, and then behind him, it doesn't quite look like it, but this is actually the base. I don't have a mounted goblin wizard from back in the Warhammer days, so I've got a goblin on foot, and then behind him is his dog, so I guess they just run together. That is another Wiz. He has the Inspiring Talisman, again, Bane Chant 2, and Lightning Bolt 3, of course, and lastly, the another legendary spell, which is called Guiding Light. So Guiding Light is a 2-die spell, costs 15 points, and if you cast it on an enemy unit within 12 inches of you, if you hit, you get +1 to hit with all of your war machines that have either reload or indirect fire. So it's an interesting idea. I mean, goblins I think do it best because rock lobbers are so cheap, but I wanted to give it a shot, and yeah, we can talk about my thoughts on it later. Actually, now that if I go back to this goblin off here on the left, I think he has Mirrodin's Amulet, so he can cast 2 spells in a turn if he wants, but I'm not exactly sure. As I said, I don't have the list right in front of me. Actually, hold on, I think I do have the goblin list right in front of me. That goblin whiz has, yep, he has Mirrodin, so you can cast Teleport and still Lightning Bolt or Bane Chant. You can see the other Wiz's wolf in full view there. And finally, off here on the right, again, touching the wood, I have 1 and 2 rock lobbers, so that makes a total of 4. And behind them, we see my my little second flagget on wolf. This guy has the diadem Dragonkind. And finally, I have 2 regiments of Spitters. So Spitters were changed in 2019 as well. They are now irregular troops, so no unlocks for Spitters, but still a pretty solid unit. Moving forward, we roll off for turn 1, and Goblins get it. So Goblins advance forward to try to get these tokens. I actually went back, I think, and fixed the deployment on the Giant, so he could walk over and get a token, but that's nothing. Oh, actually, I forgot to, let's walk a couple pictures back. Right here behind the Giant, you can barely see it. That is the, what is his name? Funnybone. So he is a 50-point guy, he gives Dread, and this is the combo in the list. It's a little weird. So if you have Cuzlo, right, walk over while you're within 6 inches of him, Cuzlo gives you -1 to your nerve, right? Then if you have Funny Bones also within 6 inches of that unit, he also gives -1 for having Dread. And then I have 1, 2 brutal units. And if they have brutal, that's another -1. So that equals a -3 to your nerve. So this is sort of the combo. I've got the Wiz over here with Teleport. He takes Funnybone because Funnybone is slow and pretty fragile, and just wings him over to you, getting in there. Cuzlo can fight and run into there, and then I charge with a brutal guy and end up with a -3 total. I'm not thinking that the -3 is going to happen all that often, but it can, and honestly just getting -1 in a bunch of places and -2 even is good enough. So that's the idea. And moving on to turn 1. So turn 1, the goblins just sort of advance. This giant, the colossal giant, decides to tip one of the loot tokens to grab it turn 1. That is one of the ones that were 2. I have my guys on the left here just sort of circle around this forest. The Mincer gets into it. the while the flagget decides to hide behind it, and then the 2 rockets just decide to obviously shoot, and then my spitters advance forward a little bit out of frame here, trying to get some shots on these dragons or maybe on the silver breeze. My chariots, I decide to angle them a little bit, so this one is facing towards the left while these guys are facing forward, so I guess one of them angled, and it's because this right flank is not really a worry for me, so I am making sure that I can take the center and the left as best I can. These chariots are my best combat units, besides the giant obviously, but so they are getting ready to fight. Also of note, these chariots are not 50% on this hill. They couldn't, that's not possible with my unit placement. Again, I decide to walk one of my whizzes forward just to get its lightning bolt off, and this flagget decides to stay within 6 inches of both of these wagons, just in case they blow up. They have to roll a maximum roll to do any wounds to him, so that's the idea there. He's also inspiring this thing because I don't have that much inspiring in the army, for goblins at least. Again, the what are these? The blasters decide to just roll forward. Since it doesn't matter whether they're hindered on a charge because they just blow up anyway, I decided to abuse the fact that we've got this long wall and just walk my guys over because I'm getting cover. So he's -1 to shoot at me. While if I charge through this stuff, it doesn't matter. I don't roll to hit. So yeah, that's the idea. And lastly, Cuzlo just moves into this forest right by the other token, and he's getting ready to either charge into these guys or just grab the token and roll backwards if he needs to. So that's the idea. Here we see the end of shooting. I actually hit with, I think, either two or three of the Wabas onto, I think it was 2, onto this Draken Horde, and I also got 1 or 2 wounds with my spitters hitting on 6s, and I do 11 wounds to him. So I actually killed him originally, so 1 turn kill, but then I roll Snake Eyes on the reroll, so they're fine. Well, they're not fine. They've got 11 wounds on them. That's pretty bad. And this is what the end of the turn looks like. I think I fired off some lightning bolts into the archer horde just to try to get that boxcar, and my chariots back here that are sort of on the hill a little bit shot at one of these ASBs to just, go for, I think it was like 8s or 9s, but that's just 7s anyway. So half shots on 6s, just trying to propagate some wounds out, as this is an elf army with no heal. So that's the idea. Oh, I also forgot to mention that the Mincer received some buffs in 19. So instead of being Thunderous 2, it's now Thunderous 1, but it's also Crush 1, so just a blanket buff, and then it loses Yellow Bellied. So yeah, Mincer can definitely get into things now and really cause some trouble. Great monster. And moving on to Elf turn 1. So Elf turn 1, we see the elves do their mighty advance, which means that they don't at all. And they just get ready to shoot the goblins down. Off on the left, we can see that he's castled up, putting his Silver Breeze right in front of his Draken Riders just to try to get them some cover. And then I think that the Dragon Kindred Lord is somewhere behind them as well. So he's got height 2, height 3, height 4, right? So it's a little domino there. Off here on the right, my opponent makes an interesting move. He's out of range of either of these wagons, right? But he's in range of getting charged by Cuzlo. And I guess the idea is that you can barely see it, but he's got one of his chariots, and he thinks if Cuzlo comes in here, I won't be able to kill him, then he'll get a flank charge with his chariot and kill him off. But at the end of the day, I don't really care if Cuzlo dies, because if he does this, I will just send my wagons in and take that 2 for 2 trade. And in Goblin Town, I've got like 21 or 22 drops. That is a boon for me. Here we see his shooting. So these guys do 0 wounds. Not too surprising, as they're only hitting me on 5s with elite. 5s and 4s, I want to say. But then the Noble and War Chariot does 1 wound to me, so I will have to roll that nerve test. These guys are only an 8-10, so hopefully he doesn't roll that 9, because big bada boom. Over here, the shooting goes a little bit better, and then worse as well. So his Sea Guard are when they shoot into my goblins, they're looking for 5s to hit because they are Sea Guard, but he only gets like 2 or 3 wounds, I want to say, in with them, while the archers here just destroy this unit. Oh, I mean 2 or 3 hits. I don't think he actually did any wounds there, but the archers, the archer horde here just does 11 wounds and actually puts me on a decent roll. Rival are normally a 1921, but I do have the Banner of the Griffin, so I am a 2022, and my opponent rolls an 8, meaning that he gets to a 19, but not the 20 he needed to actually waver me, so nothing happens instead. And over here, all of this shooting goes into one of my Labras, does 2 wounds to it, but at least he gets the waver. So not the best luck for the elves on the bottom of 1, but still there's a lot of game to play, so we'll see how it goes. Turn 2. So turn 2, this giant who had picked up a token drops it, so it's over here somewhere, drops the token and charges into some Palace Guard. The idea this turn is that I want to take little funny bones here and teleport him into the backfield so I can stack the Dread with Brutal, so they -2 there. It seemed like fun, right? Like the whole point of this list is to stress test and just to actually get a feel for how these new rules work, although Funny Bone is not new, the Colossal Giant is. Next up, Cuzlo goes into these Silver Breeze. I think that's a fine idea. I walk both of my wagons onto loot counters, and as far as I know, they are just monsters. So they walk onto them, and they'll pick them up at the end of the phase. Granted, they'll blow up, but at least I have the tokens for now. You'll have to do something about me. In the back here, I just get all my... I have to have this wizard forward because he's going to teleport Funny Bone, right? And then this Flaggett doesn't really have anyone to hit with the diadem with how I'm using him. So again, he just is my little Inspire bucket of getting within 6 of all these guys, but staying exactly 6 away from the exploding wagon. My chariots advance a little bit, so these guys are walking onto a token. These chariots actually don't advance because there's no reason to. There's so much elven cav over here that I just don't want to go that way yet. I think the noble can reach me, and maybe the dragon kindred can reach me, but no, the dragon kindred cannot, and so I don't think the noble can either. Lastly, we have these rabble just roll up to the what is this, the barrier, right? They are on a token that the giant dropped, so that's the idea, is that they will pick it up. They're hidden behind a little, barrier here. The only things that can make it into them are definitely this chariot and maybe this dragon lord. I'm hoping to kill off the dragon horde itself during my turn, so hopefully he won't be able to get enough into it to actually pop them at, again, 20-22 nerve. Oh, and these guys, since they are not 50% on a hill, are actually hidden from sight right here. They're not hidden from the chariot here, but they can't be. The chariot's not slicing well enough to actually see them. I think they might be hidden from the Palace Guard, though. Who knows? I definitely don't. During shooting, these guys end up... So I fire with, I think, this far left unit because they only have these elves as targets. So I fire this left unit into the dragon horde, and I do at least 1 wound. Since that puts them on 12, that means I need a 3 to waver them, so that's good enough for me. I take these guys and I shoot into the first Silver Breeze. I don't think I do anything. I had moved one of my war machines, the wavered guy, backed up and walked over here, but just whatever. This war machine misses the lobber, and then I actually cast the Banechant 2 onto my chariot horde with this guy, and that goes off, so I do have piercing. My mincer had walked into the woods here. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing. I've fielded mincers before while playing goblins, but I've never got them into combat, so again, I just want to get a feel for it. Over here in Cuzlo Town, he swings for the fences. He does, I think, 4 wounds, so he does pretty well. But then even with Dread, all he manages to do is waver this unit of Silver Breeze. So he will be eating a flank charge from the chariot that's over here, the noble and war chariot. And here's the giant. So you can see back here, yes, I did manage to get teleport off, and I get Funny Bone into the backfield. He can be charged by these individuals, or more likely probably diademed, but I'm not too worried. He's done his job. So yeah, I don't exactly think this is a great idea, because there are these two hordes of elves just looking right at my flanks, and definitely, especially the Sea Guard, I don't want to take them in the flank. They've got 25 attacks, I want to say, on 4s. So, and he's got a Bane Chant right here, so he could easily kill that giant off. But again, I just sort of want to see it for myself. I take him into here, and this giant just rolls insanely well. He gets like I think 14 attacks, hits with like 12 of them, and just destroys these Palace Guard. They take 10 or 11 wounds, and then I have Dread plus Brutal, and so I've got a -2 on him, and he pops right through him. Unfortunately, during his overrun, he only goes 2 inches, so he is still in line of sight of these Sea Guard and these archers, but I doubt the archers will charge him. Yeah, lastly, so we see Cuzlo failed this, the giant actually succeeded, and everything else is as it is. But I did get rid of the Dragon Horde this turn, so things are looking, coming up Goblin, but there's still another half of turn 2. At the end of movement for Elf turn 2, we can see on the left here that the Silver Breeze have advanced. They're just trying to block up some charges, probably from my chariots, from getting into his noble, or maybe the other Silver Breeze. His Dragon Kindred Lord goes into the Mincer, hoping to drop it as quickly as it can. Let's see, the Palace Guard over here just sort of turn to face the battle, right? So the space between these units, I believe, is around 12 inches, so it's around their charge. These guys were fully intended to be slightly back, although they couldn't be seen by the Palace Guard anyway, so who knows. I think I was just out of range of this Noble and War Chariot, although I had said that to my opponent. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm out of range. You know, I measured it out. And then he's like, well, you're definitely in range. So thankfully during this learning game, my opponent just let me push the unit back the millimeter it needed to be. But yeah, it just shows, be really careful with your measurements during an actual game. Yeah, over here we can see the Noble on War Chariot got into Cuzlo's flank while the Silver Breeze back up, and oof, this horde into the flank of the giant. It's probably bye-bye birdie for him. In this combat, the Noble on War Chariot does 4 wounds to Cuzlo, and he is a 12-14. He does not impact himself with his aura, because you're never within 6 inches of yourself unless it's mentioned, right? So he needs an 8 to kill, or a 10 to kill, 8 to waver, and my opponent rolls like a 3 or a 4 or something. It's really bad, and gets nothing. So instead, he bounces back. In this combat, this is really unfortunate. My opponent rolled pretty well with his shooting, I want to say. Like, these archers do a lot of damage and remove that horde of rabble. He gets his breath attack and does 4 or 5 wounds to Funny Bone. Funny Bone does stick around because no one can kill him. You know, he's too powerful for a skeleton. But the big miss is that the Bane Chant doesn't work on this horde of Sea Guards, so they're going into the giant all on their own, crushing Strengthless, and they end up doing 11 wounds to him, but it's not enough. They don't get the 9 to take him off the table, and he remains, and that is very bad for the elves. In the Mincer combat, Mincer v Dragon Kindred Lord, yeah, the Dragon Kindred Lord, I think, does 4 wounds to the Mincer. It's really bad, and again, I think he actually does roll a 3 on this one and fails to break the Mincer and fails to even waver him at I think the Mincer is a 9-11, so it's really bad for the elves right now. Yeah, he does 4 wounds to me and he double ones it, so it's just unfortunate. It's not even on the reroll, it's just the first roll, which feels even worse. So here's the end of Elf turn 2. Things are not looking good. But, you know, if Goblins get a turn 3, like Elf turn 2, you know, they could turn it around. We could go back and forth. And we move on to turn 3. So turn 3 Goblins. Starting on the left, I take my Mincer and go right into his Dragon Kindred Lord on the counter charge, because why not? I decide to have these guys just back up a little bit. The chariots sit still because they're still flanking the majority of the elf army that I think will remain. In the middle, something big happens, which is I take this rabble horde, the Banner of the Griffin guys, and I take this horde of what are they, chariots. I drop the token from the chariots and I go right into the flank of these elves, and that is not going to be good. Seaguard do not want to be taking this kind of damage, especially from the chariots. I decide to reposition my flagger to get a shot onto this guy, right? He's got the diadem, might as well use it. And this guy is just holding back. He doesn't really have anything to do. Lastly, I take this wizard forward. So this is the Guiding Light wizard, and the plan is to get Guiding Light here. I can see it with this guy and with this guy. It doesn't quite look like it, but there's a very small line right to the edge of the unit where I can see him. So I'll get 2 War Machines on 4+, and it's better than none. So I roll up there, but I miss with the Guiding Light, and then I miss with the War Machines, I think. Pretty sure. My shooting is not great here, but it's all on 5+, so I'm not expecting anything spectacular. But the one thing that does happen during the shooting phase is you can see I've got a wagon here and a wagon here. Also Cuzlo going back into the Silver Breeze. But with the blasters here, this guy is just about 5 inches from the archers, and this guy is nowhere by the archers. But I'd rather go for the 5 and get 2 units than just combo charge this guy and blow up and do the exact same thing I was going to do anyway. So this guy, he rolls a 4, which is a little unfortunate, but he does get a 9 for the blast, and puts 7 or 8 wounds onto the noble, right? And then I have this guy blow up, and he does another 7-ish wounds or something like that. And I did have a small rule query here, but neither my opponent nor I could figure it out, and we didn't want to waste a lot of time. But so I got him in combat, but at the end of the shooting phase, because these guys blow up whenever they want in the shooting phase, and morale happens at the end, so he's no longer in combat. So I assume he takes the break check, and that is what my opponent assumed as well. I don't roll the double one, and he is dead. So the right side is looking good, the center is looking possibly very good, and then the left is okay. Yeah, just showing off this combat. These elves had already taken 6 before the giant decided to flank charge them. And Funnybone is actually somewhere back here fighting the other ASB. He only has 1 attack and he hits on a 6, but still it was funny, so I went for it. And in this combat, yeah, these chariots just chew through the Sea Guard and just do an obscene amount of damage. So they're gone. Over here with the Colossal Giant, yep, he easily kills off these archers, again using that Dread plus Brutal combo. So they're gone. Here, yep, we blew up and died there, and Cuzlo ends up going back into, oh, you can actually see Cuzlo with his regen 4, with his regen 4+, oh my god, I'm bad with this, his regen 4+, he has healed 3 wounds, so he's only on 1 wound right now. And yeah, he goes in, does an additional 4 wounds, putting these guys on 8, and then he has his own Ravenous Lizard rule, so it's essentially a 9, and he wavers them. So, good job, Cuzlo. And yes, this is the end of turn 3 for Goblins. You can see that the Colossal Giant has killed off his prey. My chariots are facing towards the remaining units on the left, as are these chariots. My Mincer did not do very well against this dragon, did 2 wounds to him, but it doesn't really matter. I turned off his flight, and I have 1 primary token. My opponent actually has 1 primary token as well on these Silver Breeze, but they have taken 5 wounds from my shooting. The other guys have taken 8, and the only thing undamaged on the table is this ASB and this noble on chariot. So we actually roll out my opponent's turn. Yeah, we roll up my opponent's turn, but it doesn't go well. Oh, yeah, actually, what is going on here? So, unfortunately, it doesn't go very well for him. The Palace Guard, who I've forgotten about, charge into my Rabble Horde, the Banner of the Griffin guys. They can't do enough damage to kill me. I actually originally just go, okay, let's just quick roll it. So assume the Palace Guard kill me, right? And then this Noble on War Chariot can kill off the rabble down here because it's a flank charge. Then this dragon can kill off the mincer, right? The Noble on War Chariot, let's assume it overruns perfectly to be out of line of sight, but not too far, although I don't think that's really relevant. And these guys just reform back, right? Even if all that happens, and of course the mincer dies and the dragon overruns past my chariot's line of sight as well. Even if all that happens, we then rolled out what happens during Goblin turn 4, and the rocket batteries all go into the dragon. I turn around with this guy and my 2 chariot hordes and burn down the Palace Guard. The Noble on the War Chariot gets charged by a giant. And the only thing and Cuzlo goes over to finish these guys off, and at the end of the turn, all he has left is, and this unit gets taken down by spitters, I want to say, and then all he has left are these very damaged guys and 1 ASB fighting my stupid skeleton. So yeah, we call it there. It ends up being not a particularly well, in terms of scenario points, it's not a big one for the goblins, but they do completely table the opponent by 4 turns, and yeah, that was a rough game. As for the list itself, again, I don't think that this is an optimal way to run it. I was just trying to bring all the 2019 stuff to see how it works, right? My opponent rolled very poorly. I rolled pretty freaking well, so yeah, it's not a great litmus, but still, I think I had a good time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And I'll see you next time for more Clash of Kings 2019 reports. Bye.